Brett Monroe had grown up surrounded by horses, and his life had always been intertwined with the rugged traditions of Texas ranching. He often recalled the early mornings spent riding through vast, open landscapes that stretched beyond the horizon. His heart belonged to these noble animals, and every experience with them deepened his lifelong passion. Each memory of riding under the endless sky reinforced his bond with the creatures he so dearly admired. It was this very connection that made every unusual sign concerning his horses all the more worrisome. Among all his horses, one stood out, a magnificent stallion named Lightning, celebrated for his speed and strength. Lightning's prowess was the talk of the ranch. He moved with a power and grace that few could match. Every time he thundered across the pastures, his presence commanded respect and awe. Brett had spent years perfecting the art of caring for such an exceptional animal. The stallion's impressive reputation had always filled Brett with pride and admiration. Lately, however, something wasn't right. Every morning, without fail, Brett discovered Lightning looking utterly spent. It was as if the stallion had run an endless, exhausting race during the night. The once vibrant energy in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a heavy weariness. This daily sight left Brett feeling increasingly unsettled and desperate for answers. Curiously, Lightning's condition was even more baffling because he hadn't been ridden in days. Despite the long rest he was given, the stallion still appeared drenched in sweat and struggling to stand. The physical signs of fatigue were impossible to ignore, yet there was no obvious reason for them. Brett couldn't help but wonder how his champion horse could be so depleted without any apparent exertion. The mystery deepened with every new day, making Brett's concern grow even stronger. After a thorough check, the vet confirmed that Lightning was in perfect health. No illness or injury was found to account for his constant exhaustion. Yet, each morning, the horse looked as though he had just completed a grueling marathon. This paradox between his excellent health and his worn-out appearance left Brett both perplexed and anxious. Determined to uncover the truth behind this strange phenomenon, he resolved to take immediate action. With a mix of determination and trepidation, Brett decided to install a surveillance camera in the barn, believing that the key to Lightning's condition lay hidden in the events of the night. That very evening, he set up the camera meticulously and settled in for the night, his mind abuzz with possibilities. Sleep came slowly as he imagined what secrets the darkness might reveal. When morning finally arrived, Brett rushed to his laptop with eager anticipation. He couldn't wait to review the footage and finally see what was happening when he wasn't around. Every second of that night's recording held the potential to answer his burning questions. He sat down, fingers trembling slightly, and began to play back the video. The quiet hum of the computer filled the room as he prepared for a revelation that might change everything. Almost immediately, the footage delivered an unexpected shock. Shortly after the ranch's lights went off and the world outside fell silent, the barn doors creaked open. The soft sound of the door moving in the darkness sent a shiver down his spine. Brett leaned in closer, trying to catch every detail as the night unfolded on screen. It was clear that something mysterious was taking place under the cover of darkness. Emerging from the deep shadows was a slender figure, a teenage boy no older than 16. The young intruder wore a worn-out cowboy hat that gave him a curious, almost nostalgic look. He moved with an eerie silence, as though he were part of the night itself. Every step he took was measured and quiet, drawing closer to something, or someone. Brett watched, both alarmed and fascinated, as the boy advanced toward Lightning. In a surprisingly deliberate motion, the boy approached the stallion with quiet reverence. He leaned in as if to whisper secrets only the two of them could understand. With gentle hands, he carefully placed a saddle on Lightning's back. It was a tender act that seemed both affectionate and oddly ritualistic. The scene, filled with soft murmurs and careful movements, hinted at a deeper connection between them. Without any hesitation, the boy then did something utterly shocking. He climbed onto Lightning as if he were completely at ease with the stallion's strength. Before Brett could even process what was happening, the pair surged out of the barn. The barn's doors closed quietly behind them, leaving only a lingering sense of disbelief. Brett could hardly move as he tried to comprehend the audacity of the act. From his vantage point, Brett watched the pair disappear into the open fields. Under the glow of the moon, the boy guided Lightning with an almost ghostly precision. The scene unfolded like a dream, where reality mixed with the surreal light of night. Every stride of the stallion was charged with an energy that both thrilled and alarmed Brett. It was as if the night itself had lent them a magical freedom that defied logic. For nearly 2 hours, the mysterious rider pushed Lightning to his limits. They raced across rolling hills, the wind whistling past as the duo sped by. Leaping over fences with breathtaking agility, they moved like a single determined force. The relentless pace and wild maneuvers added a pulse-quickening tension to the night. All the while, the young rider's focus remained unbroken, as if he had a purpose known only to him. Just as the first hints of dawn began to brighten the sky, the boy made his move. With the same quiet resolve he had shown earlier, he steered Lightning back toward the barn. The return was as silent and unhurried as their departure had been. He dismounted carefully, ensuring not to startle the great stallion he'd pushed so hard. Then, with a tender pat on Lightning's neck, he removed the saddle and vanished into the night. Brett was left standing in the barn doorway, his mind racing with questions. Who was this mysterious boy, and why was he intruding into his barn every single night? The unanswered questions filled the cool morning air, heavy with mystery. Each new thought only deepened his sense of bewilderment and concern. It was a puzzle that demanded resolution, and Brett was determined to find it out. The following night, Brett resolved to catch the intruder himself. He couldn't stand the idea of another morning filled with unanswered mysteries. With his resolve hardening, he prepared himself for what lay ahead. He knew that confronting the unknown was risky, yet he could not let the mystery continue. His heart pounded with equal parts dread and determination as he made his plans. Armed with only a flashlight and his reliable rifle, just in case, Brett set out. He positioned himself carefully outside the barn, every sense on high alert. The night felt unusually still, as though it were holding its breath in anticipation. Brett's eyes scanned the darkness, waiting for any sign of movement. He could almost hear his own heartbeat, loud and insistent in the quiet. As midnight approached, the barn doors began their familiar creak. Slowly, deliberately, the doors opened once more, just as Brett had foreseen. The intruder made his silent entrance, slipping into the darkness with practiced ease. In that moment, Brett sprang into action, flipping on the lights with a firm command. "Hold it right there," he shouted, his voice echoing off the barn walls. The sudden burst of light startled the boy, and he froze in his tracks. His eyes widened with fear, reflecting the harsh brightness that now surrounded him. He stood there, a picture of disarray, his features marked by anxiety and shock. Clad in torn clothes and dusty boots, his appearance spoke of hardship and neglect. Brett's voice cut through the silence as he demanded, "Who are you, and why are you riding my horse?" Under the unyielding glare, the trembling boy lowered his head in defeat. It was as if the weight of the situation had pressed him into silence. Brett's stern tone left no room for excuses or evasions. The air was thick with tension as the boy mustered the courage to speak. In that charged moment, the truth of his situation began to unfold. In a hesitant, wavering voice, the boy finally introduced himself. "I'm Ricky, sir," he stammered, his words laced with both remorse and a deep-seated passion. He explained that his actions were driven by an overwhelming love for horses. There was a raw sincerity in his confession that hinted at a troubled past. Ricky's admission painted a picture of a young man caught between desire and circumstance. He went on to share that he had once owned a horse, a cherished companion lost to misfortune. The memory of that lost friend had haunted him, leaving an emptiness he couldn't fill. Every time he saw Lightning, it stirred echoes of the past, a reminder of what he had lost. His eyes softened as he recounted the bond he once had, a bond that no longer existed. The pain of that loss resonated in every word, drawing Brett's empathy closer. "I only rode him at night," Ricky confessed in a voice barely above a whisper. "I was sure you'd never let me ride during the day, so I waited for the cover of darkness." There was a palpable vulnerability in his admission, a blend of hope and regret. He spoke as if each word were a secret entrusted to the night, fragile and honest. The explanation, though unconventional, began to shed light on his desperate actions. Listening to Ricky's heartfelt confession, Brett felt his initial anger slowly fade away. The harsh lines of his expression softened as understanding replaced suspicion. It became clear that Ricky wasn't a common thief or a troublemaker, but a lost soul. He was simply a kid yearning for a connection, a chance to recapture something lost. In that quiet moment, empathy bridged the gap between them, dissolving past judgments. After a long, thoughtful pause, Brett broke the silence with a gentle inquiry. "You really do love horses, don't you?" he asked, his tone both kind and firm. The question hung in the air, charged with both inquiry and compassion. It was a simple question that spoke volumes about Brett's growing understanding. Ricky's eyes lit up immediately in response, mirroring his inner hope. With an eager nod, Ricky confirmed his deep affection for horses. His eyes shone brightly, as if a long-dormant spark had finally been ignited. There was an unmistakable gleam of determination mixed with relief in his gaze. The vulnerability he had shown earlier transformed into a spark of optimism. It was a moment of silent acknowledgement between two kindred spirits. Taking a deep breath, Brett proposed an unexpected solution. "Why don't you work for me?" he offered in a calm, measured tone. He suggested that Ricky could help care for Lightning and ride him during the day. It was a proposal that promised structure and a second chance, a way to channel his passion. Brett's words were simple yet filled with the possibility of a new beginning. Ricky's face immediately brightened at the unexpected offer. He could hardly believe that someone would understand his longings so completely. "Do you really mean it?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of hope and disbelief. The sincerity in his tone was matched only by the excitement dancing in his eyes. It was a rare moment where fate offered him a chance to reclaim a piece of his past. Brett gave a firm nod, sealing the new arrangement with quiet confidence. He added one final, non-negotiable condition: no more sneaking around at night. There was an unspoken understanding in his words, a promise of a safer, better way. Ricky agreed wholeheartedly, a genuine smile breaking through the tension of the night. From that day forward, Lightning was no longer found exhausted, for he had gained a devoted friend and caretaker who rode him proudly under the bright Texas sun.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.